Good morning, class. We are going to start a topic of bone marrow. First of all, we will go for bone marrow examination. But before moving toward the bone marrow examination, we will discuss some physiology of bone marrow, and we will discuss the importance of bone marrow in our body. So let's start our today's lecture. So here you can observe anatomical position or location of bone marrow. So bone marrow जो है वो हमारी long bone के या it's actually a soft portion of our long bones especially. Okay, so there are three portion in bone. First of cortical bone, which is actually a hard portion. Then spongy. In this spongy bone, marrow is present, and the marrow is the home for hemopoiesis. Okay, so if we define bone marrow is a highly cellular, viscous, and highly vascular tissue present within the hollow cavity of the hard bone, and is specially designed to support the proliferation, differentiation, and maturation of hemopoietic cells. Okay, so from this definition you can easily understand that this place is highly cellular. It means there are many cells are present in the bone marrow, including mature, immature, or including WBCs, RBCs, platelets, and many types of other cells. Okay, so that's why it's a highly cellular, and it's highly viscous due to the presence of many cells and highly vascular tissues present within the hollow cavities. So actually many sporting structure is also present in the bone marrow. So it's many fat cells are also present in the cell in the bone marrow, and this is actually all things actually exist in the cavity. In a long bone we say it's in other words a hollow cavity. So so by nature this portion of bone, especially in long bone, is especially designed for the production of new cells, starting from proliferation or initiation or production of cell to till maturation of maturation of cells. Okay, so almost all types of cells produce or produce in the bone marrow. So that's why bone marrow is most important for study. So why we do bone marrow examination? Um, you can easily understand this thing from this slide. If this is highly vascular, highly cellular, that's mean it means if anything goes wrong in the peripheral blood or blood vessels, means if we face deficiency of cells, any type of cells, and we have not found any source of cells deficiency, then we will move for bone marrow examination. Okay, what is actually wrong in the house of bone marrow production और सेल प्रोडक्शन जहाँ से बन रहे हैं वहाँ पर कोई चीज़ ख़राब तो नहीं है. सो दैट्स वाई बोन मैरो एग्जामिनेशन इज़ इम्पोर्टेंट. ओके, another thing, there are two types of bone marrow actually, medulla osseum rubra and medulla osseum flava. Actually a red marrow which is consisting mainly of hemopoietic tissues are osseum rubra, or then another is yellow marrow consisting mainly of fat cells. So this is actually osseum flava. So you can understand that with the hemopoietic cells or hemopoietic tissue, fat cells also are also high in number in the bone marrow. Okay, so on average bone marrow constitute 4% of the total body mass of humans. Okay, so means total body mass का 4% है. Then in adult weight around, if a weight is of adult is 65 kg, then bone marrow accounts for approximately 2.6 kg. Okay, so these are all few things about the bone marrow, and the hemopoietic compartment of bone marrow produces approximately 500 billion blood cells per day. So now you can understand the importance of the bone marrow. Means it actually a production house for the cell. So any if anything goes wrong in the production house, then uh, whole body will suffer, whole body can suffer due to the just error in the bone marrow. Okay, so let's discuss pattern of distribution. At birth, all bone marrow is red. Okay, then with the age, more and more of it is converted into yellow type. Only around half of the adult bone marrow is red. ठीक है. So in adult usually around half of the bone marrow is red. जबकि बर्थ के दौरान क्या होता है, सारे का सारा bone marrow जो है वो red होता है. Because at the time of birth, body needs more cells, or body need more support for the development. So that's why at birth all bone marrow is red and more cells are produced. Then with the passage of time, when person reaches in adults, then in adults their yellow portion is also present. Then in adults, red marrow is found mainly in the flat bones and in the epiphyseal end of the long bones. If you know about the anatomy of the long bone, then there is a portion in the long bone is epiphyseal and okay, like in femur and humerus. So usually red bone marrow is found mainly in the flat bones and in the epiphyseal end of the long bones. Okay, it's actually a clear cut thing. So in femur and humor, epiphyseal end is most important, where red bone marrow is mostly present. Then yellow marrow is found in the medullary cavity. So now you have to do some you have to revise your anatomy of the long bone. So in the medullary cavity of the bone, yellow marrow is can be found. Okay, so this is actually a distribution. We can understand this distribution through a graph as well. So this is actually a graphical representation with the passage of time, when from start day of your life, from start day of your life and till now and till 70s, or after 70s. So first of all, they all produce in the vertebrae. They all produce initially, they produce in the tibia and ribs. Okay, uh, tibia and sorry femur, so they produce in the long bone. So with the passage of time, production start decreasing, and they more cells produce more in vertebrae, sternum, ribs, as compared to femur and tibia in around 50s. Okay, so after 50s, after around 60s, vertebrae, sternum, uh, actually, and the ribs are the major sources for the supply of all types of blood cells. So that's why hemopoietic, this is a percentage or a graphical representation of cell production with the lifespan of any organism, of any human. Sorry, this is actually microscopic picture of bone marrow. You can observe in extreme left corner diagram, normal cell or normal bone marrow formation, in which cells and fat cells are normal. In actually in these circle or white spaces in the bone marrow are showing fat cells, presence of fat cell, and the red area in the bone marrow is showing the presence of cells. So in the central diagram, you can observe hypercellularity of bone marrow. It means bone marrow is producing more cells as compared to normal. And in the right side diagram, you can observe just presence of fat cells. Fat cells are in large, but uh, other cells are very less. So that's why hypocellularity is in right side diagram. So these are actually things which can happen in the bone marrow. You should remind these things. Actually, the purpose behind to show these diagrams is to you is just to memorize these things. Okay, how bone marrow, normal bone marrow looks like, and what is hypo and what is hypercellularity of the bone marrow. Okay, so these are actually much important things. Another important thing is structure of bone marrow. So, if we discuss structure of bone marrow, then there are two compartments: vascular compartment and hemopoietic compartment. Compartment is subdivided into hematopoietic cells compartment, where hematopoietic cells exist, and the where supporting cell or stromal cells exist. Okay, so here you can observe a diagram in which you can observe some few important phenomena. In upper graph, you can observe after self renewal of cells, you can observe multiplication increases. So with when multiplication initially multiplication is greater than differentiation, and with the passage of time more cells multiply cells after multiplication move into differentiation. So at the end differentiation is increased, and so multiplication differentiation moves oppositely. If multiplication increases initially, and with the passage of time increased multiply or multiplied cells moves into differentiation phase. Okay, so then क्योंकि cells ज़्यादा है multiply, तो इसलिए differentiation at the end ज़्यादा हो जाएगी. And initially in B diagram you can observe stem cell, a single cell which is actually responsible for all these phenomena is stem cell. All cells initiate or grow or originate from the stem cell. So after stem cells form multipotent progenitor cells, and these progenitor cells may be of many types. They can be of WBC precursor cells, they can be of RBC precursor cells, and they can be father for platelets. Okay, so from single stem cells many types of multipotent progenitor cells form, and after these cells specific cells are formed, and the last stage is maturation. Okay, so this is actually a diagram including their essentials. You should keep these things in mind. In this diagram, now we are going to discuss stem cells, types of stem cells. Usually, there are two types of stem cells. First of all, embryonic, those stem cells which actually forms within in embryo, and these cells are responsible for the production of many other cells. Then another thing is these are actually totipotent stem cells. Other stem cells are known as pluripotent stem cells. Okay, pluripotent stem cells divides into epithelial cells, neuronal stem cells, hemopoietic stem cells. Okay, so these are actually two types of stem cells. Both can be closely related, but actually these there are two different types. Here is another diagram in sport of hypercellularity of bone marrow. You can easily observe the formation of blood capillaries or blood vessels actually passes through the long bone to just to transport the new cells to the other parts of body. So blood vessels exist in the bone marrow, and there are macrophages. You can observe macrophages are large cells, stromal cells as well, stem cells, then progenitor cells. So these are actually you can observe different types of cells with the different nucleus concentration with different size. So it means कि a bone marrow is full of with cells. These are hypercellularity. This is actually uh, सेलुलर है, बहुत ज़्यादा सेल्स हैं, और these cells are of many types of every type. Cells are actually originating from the bone marrow. That's why marrow is actually uh, have many type of cells. We have discussed the stem cell or importance of stem cells. Now, what is stroma of the bone marrow? Stroma is actually an environment. In other words, in a very simple word, stroma is actually an environment or a place which where cells multiply. So, isn't directly involved in the primary function of hematopoiesis. So, the yellow marrow belongs here and makes the majority of the bone marrow stroma. In addition to stroma cell located in the red bone marrow. Okay. सो ज़्यादा सो स्ट्रोमा एक्चुअली क्या है, या ज़्यादातर येलो बोन मैरो से बिलोंग करता है, बट एक्चुअली इट्स प्रोवाइड्स अ सपोर्ट और अ प्लेस जस्ट फॉर द जस्ट कुछ रेड बोन मैरो में भी प्रेजेंट होते हैं. सो एक्चुअली ये वो प्लेस है जहाँ पर सेल्स की जो है फॉर्मेशन होगी. स्टिल द स्ट्रोमा इज इनडायरेक्टली इन्वॉल्व विद द हीमेटोपोइसिस. सो इफ स्ट्रोमा इज प्रेजेंट इन द बोन मैरो और रेड बोन मैरो एज वेल, सो दैट्स व्हाई हीमेटोपोइसिस is also a part is then stroma is also included in the hematopoiesis, and it provides the hematopoietic microenvironment structure support. That's why I was telling you that it provides structural support to the cell. Means actually it's an environment. Okay. If cells are in production, then environment should be maintained, and environment should be specific for the production, and this in micro environment actually is the responsibility of stroma. Supporting structure of bone marrow consists of fibroblast, macrophages, adipocytes, osteoclast, endothelial cells which form the sinusoids. So these are actually supporting structure, or in other words we say it's stroma of the bone marrow. And it's provide actually a micro environment. These cells collectively provides micro environment for the production of others, colony forming unit, other precursor cell, and this still and till maturation of many cells. Here's a diagram to understand, to just to memorize you के bone marrow का environment कैसा है. तो there is a stem cell, and stem cell is responsible for the production of all types of cells like macrophages, like endothelial cells, fibroblasts, fat cells, extracellular matrix, connective tissues. So these are actually things which are a responsibility of stem cells. So Stem cells can act through many ways in the production of all types of cells. Sometimes stem cells helps produce reproduce sorry helps in the production by binding with the addition molecule, or sometimes they works with the growth factors. Okay, so both things are common. So this is actually about the bone marrow. So bone marrow is actually an environment, a place, or a home for the production of all types of cells. So that's why this bone marrow is hypercellular, or we can say if we say it correctly, then we say it's very cellular structure, and highly viscous due to the presence of many cells as well as fat cells as well. Okay, so this is actually introduction of bone marrow. Thank you.